we're sorry that that Monty and Lisa and others couldn't make it, but that leaves Jamie and I to heal the urban-rural divide, which is good because he's a little bit country, and you know,
You're a little bit
I'm a little bit rock and roll.
Yeah.
As mentioned, the party's had a rough time breaking the cities in the last few elections, and really for about a generation. And to say that we have all the answers is not a true story, but Jamie and I have taken it upon ourselves with a few others to start something entrepreneurial in the last months, which is called Blue Skies, which is sort of an outside-the-box look at where the PC Party of Ontario goes from here, which is sort of a little bit outside the party and a chance for some creative ideas and design thinking, as Craig was mentioning. I think from a policy standpoint, the party in the last election had a really quite a credible cities platform. And there was a caucus white paper produced in the months leading up to the campaign, which ran some 28 pages, which had a series of very good ideas for cities across the province, and particularly for the GTA and for the downtown GTA. And I look at the Star this weekend, publishing its top 10 ideas for the GTA. Number 1 was a downtown relief line. Number 3 was a merged transportation agency. Both of those ideas could have been lifted from Tim Hudak's platform.
But who knew?
But in fairness, who knew? And I mean, and the Toronto Star maybe not the best barometer of what urban policy should be, but it at least demonstrates that there was, I think, a reasonably credible policy commitment to developing some smart solutions for the region. And obviously, you know, there was a number of rural policies as well, agri-food, rural economic development, and the party did relatively much better in rural seats, although still lost seats in rural Ontario. And so I guess that leaves us thinking it can't strictly be a policy issue, which I think we already know. There's a communications issue, there's a symbolism issue, there's a feeling of being of urban Ontario, of being of the 416, of being of downtown, that the party still lacks. I guess the one other point I would put on the table is, despite the challenges of the last campaign, and Jamie can speak to this as well, despite the challenges of the last campaign on a provincial basis, the PC Party of Ontario did better in the 416 in 2014 than it did in 2011, and in fact did much better. In most of the downtown 416 seats, the party did 25, 30, 40% better than it had 2.5 years ago. Some of that is probably a reflection of city's agenda. Probably some of it's a reflection of a more fiscally oriented platform. But there's a lot to digest, and there's certainly a big chasm to make the party more of downtown Toronto.
Since the June election, a lot of people have talked about one particular policy and pretended like that's all that ever took place. But with my experience that I've had, Craig mentioned off the top that I worked for Jason Kenney, and for 3 of the 6 years I worked for Jason, I essentially lived on the road, being in cities like Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, and Calgary every weekend, reaching out to new Canadians, and actually talking with the conversation. And anyone who has a bit of a marketing background knows you don't close the deal the first time you talk to someone. You have to have 2, 3, 4, 5 touch points before you really have people listening to you and look to close the deal. And I think there needs to be a similar approach to how we approach electoral politics in this province. And Lief talked about some of the great policy initiatives that we had in the past campaign as a part of our platform, but they weren't resonating at the door. And there was one particular focus on the amount of jobs in the private sector and more focus on jobs in the public sector. And I think one of the things we need to do is actually look outside to people who aren't involved in the party today and ask them why. If we're going to grow the Ontario PC Party and grow the movement in urban centres where the population are, whether that's here in Toronto where we don't hold a seat, whether that's in Ottawa where we have a couple seats on the outskirts of the city, we need to be talking to people who aren't presently voting for us, and I think that's been a weakness of the party in the past, and that's something that can be overcome through ongoing conversation and actually having real tangible relationships with people across the city. I think we also need to do a better job of looking at the fact that the PC Party kind of built the province in the post-war movement up until the 80s and early 90s. We don't do enough to talk about our history of all the schools and all the roads and all the infrastructure that we built. I joked when I did the agenda during the campaign on transportation issues and the amount of subway stations that we've opened are essentially all the entire lines, whereas the Liberals under the past, McGuinty-Wynne Liberals, haven't opened a single subway station. But when people think about transit, they don't view it as an issue attached to the center, right? They don't view it as our interests and what we've done in the past and what we want to do in the future as being aligned with their interests. And so that's part of the bridge that we need to build here in the time ahead. So Lief and I and a bunch of others started the Blue Skies Initiative over the summer and put together 100 people in a room back in early September to talk about ideas and put everything on the table. We grouped it into 4 areas. One was kind of 2 to start. One was the party specific and the other was kind of the broader movement. So one focused on policy and kind of think tank approaches to how we can build capacity on the center right. One was how we can grow a movement through existing third-party groups. One session focused exclusively on how the party is structured, what the relationship is like between membership and communities, NHQ and the caucus at Queen's Park, and then the last was the approach to communication. So I think it's evident that we have areas to improve in all. And we're in the final approaches right now of putting together a final report. It's something we're looking to grow here in the weeks and months ahead. So I will stop there. I look forward to hearing what questions you guys have tonight and what feedback you have for us, and talk about how a centre independent Ontario can help not only bridge the urban-rural divide, but be better represented in cities.